All right, so let's get right into it. When we think of the story of Jesus healing the man born blind, we usually picture a simple, beautiful miracle. But what if I told you the original text reads less like a gentle healing story and more like a crime scene kicking off this high-stakes courtroom drama? And really, that's the big question here. For the man who got his sight back, it was absolutely a miracle. But for the religious authorities, a serious law had just been broken in public, and they were about to launch a full-blown investigation.
Okay, so let's set the stage a bit. We're in Jerusalem, and the Feast of Tabernacles is just wrapped up. Jesus has just finished saying he's the light of the world, and boom, what happens next? He's about to show everyone, in a very literal way, what that really means, when he comes across a man who's been blind since birth.
And right out of the gate, Jesus just shatters this deeply held belief. His disciples ask the typical question for that time: who sinned? Was it him or his parents that caused this? But Jesus' answer? It's completely radical. He just reframes the whole thing. This isn't about punishment. It's about creating a stage for God's work to be put on full display.
Okay, but this is where the legal trouble really kicks in. This whole thing happens on the Sabbath. Now, you could totally heal someone if it was a life-or-death situation. But this guy's blindness, it was a chronic thing, not a medical emergency. And that distinction, well, that's everything. Jesus' specific actions were about to cross a major legal line.
So what exactly did he do that was so controversial? First, he spits on the ground and makes some clay. Now, to you and me, that sounds simple, but in the eyes of the law, that could be seen as kneading, like dough, which was one of the 39 types of work that were a huge no-no on the Sabbath. He puts it on the man's eyes, tells him to go wash, and when the man comes back, he can see, for the first time ever.
And here's a little detail that is it's pure genius, really. The name of the pool, Siloam, comes from a Hebrew word that means sent. So you have Jesus, who calls himself the sent one from God, sending a man to a pool called Sent to get his sight. It's this incredible, symbolic wordplay that just hammers home his whole mission. So you can probably guess what happens next, right? This guy, a beggar everyone knows is blind, is suddenly walking around seeing. It causes a huge stir. The miracle is so public it can't possibly be ignored. So the religious authorities, the Pharisees, they open up a formal investigation. And this whole thing plays out just like a real trial. First up are the neighbors, and they're all confused. They can't even agree if it's the same guy. Then they haul in the parents, who are clearly terrified. And finally, they have to face the star witness himself, the man who was healed.
Okay, let's talk about the parents' testimony, because this is where you really start to feel the pressure cooker heat up. You can see just how much is on the line for everybody who gets pulled into this.
The authorities asked them two pretty simple questions. Is this your son? And so how can he see now? They say, yep, he's our son, born blind. But when it comes to that second question, they just dodge it completely. So why? What on earth would make them so terrified to talk about their own son's amazing healing?
Well, the answer comes down to this one powerful Greek word, aposynagogues. It means being put out of the synagogue. And listen, this wasn't like just getting kicked out of your local club. This was total excommunication. You'd be completely cut off from everything. Your friends, your business, your entire religious life. So yeah, the parents were under some serious pressure not to say the wrong thing. So, since they can't get a straight answer out of the parents, the authorities have no choice. They bring the man himself back in for a second round of questioning. And this is where the whole drama just hits its peak.
What's amazing is that as they grill him, his own understanding of who Jesus is, it explodes. At first, he's just the man called Jesus, but then under pressure, he calls him a prophet. And by the end of it, he's using pure logic to declare that Jesus must be from God. It's like his new physical sight is opening the door to this incredible spiritual insight.
And this is the best part. He totally turns the tables on these religious scholars. They lay down their official verdict. We know this man is a sinner. But this man, who they look down on as just some uneducated beggar, he comes back with this simple, just devastating logic. He says, look, we all know God doesn't listen to sinners. So how did this sinner open my eyes? He basically says, you guys are the experts. You tell me. The irony is just off the charts.
So because they can't argue with his logic, and they're absolutely furious at his boldness, the court makes its decision. They do the very thing his parents were so scared of. They cast him out. And for what? For telling the truth about what happened to him? And for that, he gets excommunicated.
But wait, the trial isn't actually over.
because after this earthly court has given its sentence, the real judge shows up. Jesus actually seeks out the man who is just thrown out, all to deliver the story's final verdict.
And Jesus just drops this absolute bombshell, this total reversal. He says he came for judgment, a kind of crisis or separation. His being here in the world will give sight to those who are blind, but it will expose the blindness of those who are so confident they can already see.
So that's the whole point, isn't it? There are two kinds of blindness going on in this entire story. There's the physical blindness, which was healed, and then there's a spiritual blindness, which was revealed. The man who began in physical darkness ends up in spiritual light, and the leaders who thought they had all the light are revealed to be in complete darkness.
Now, a story this rich, you can bet it's been looked at in a lot of different ways over the centuries. For example, in Catholic tradition, the washing in the pool is seen as a symbol of baptism. The Orthodox Church celebrates it as a beautiful image of divine illumination, or theosis, and for Reformed traditions, it's a perfect example of God's sovereign grace in action.
So in the end, this story from John 9 really leaves us with a pretty tough question. The people in the story who were most certain of their spiritual sight were, ironically, the ones who were the most blind. It really makes us stop and think, right? What are the things we're so certain about today that might just be our own blind spots?